Hey guys, I'm Mark and I'm really excited because today I'm going to harvest my garlic. But before I do, I wanted to put together a video just to tell you a little bit about it, how I plant it, how I grow it, harvest it, cure it, store it, etc. So to start with, behind me here is my bed of garlic. I planted a full bed of it this year, which I'm really excited about. The bed is 8 foot long by 24 foot wide, or 24 foot long by 8 foot wide, or however you want to say it. But I've got 475 garlic plants in here. I planted them in the fall. In fact, I planted them, I think on November 16th is when I stuck the cloves in the ground. And this is the very last part of June, and you can see it's getting ready to be pulled up here. The way you can tell Softneck garlic is ready to be pulled is it starts to yellow and it starts to kind of fall over a little bit. So once you start seeing plants falling over, that's when you know it's time to get it out. This garlic that I planted, again, it's a softneck garlic. The specific variety is called California white softneck. It's the standard white garlic that you see in a lot of the grocery stores around the United States. But I've finally got enough stock together, or at least I stretched my stock so that I could get a full bed planted up. And so anyway, this bed is, you can see it's about 8 inches tall. It's the same as any of my other beds, and it's got the same soil in it. So if you look at one of my other videos about how I describe my soil and what's in my beds, this is the same soil as any other bed. And then I've also got on top of here a thick layer of shredded leaves. Well, it's not that thick anymore, but it was thick in the fall when I put it on. I used shredded leaves to mulch in the fall because number one, I had leaves available in the fall, and then number two, it made a really nice mulch that the spikes could push up through. When you first plant your garlic cloves in the fall, it only takes about a week before it sends up a little green spike, and that's what you want it to do. It's a very important part of planting garlic, is you want to get that clove to set roots out and send a little spike up, because that way it establishes itself into the ground so that it's ready to face winter that much more. Like I said, you'd be really surprised how quick it comes up. It's only like 4 or 5 days after you plant the clove. It knows to send out roots and sends up that little spike. But anyway, it'll send up that little spike, and then you'll see it yellow off throughout the winter and just kind of die. And then come springtime, once the temperature starts to rise a little bit, then you'll see the garlic just take off again. If you wanted to, at that point, when you really start to see it take off and grow, you could put like a liquid nitrogen fertilizer on here. I don't, or at least I haven't this year. Most of my soil has just been amended with compost and manure and whatnot. So I think my mineral content, nutrient content is pretty sufficient as it is. So anyway, I'll show you how I harvest this. Basically, you can see some plants are larger than others, and that's okay. I'm going to pull all of it out today, regardless of the size, because it's all ready. The size of the bulbs depends on largely on the size of the clove that was planted. So you can see here, this is a relatively larger size bulb that was planted, and this clove was probably a lot larger. The big fat cloves are going to give you the big fat bulb. But I did stretch out all my stock. I was using a lot smaller cloves than I really ideally wanted to, so I do wind up having some of these smaller plants over here, which is okay. I mean, they'll serve their purpose. I'll actually use these in pickling. They're great for that, because what I'll do is, like when I make quart cucumbers later this summer, I like to put a lot of garlic in my cucumbers, or in my pickles, excuse me. And what I'll do is I'll just take this whole bulb, this whole little bulb, and I'll wash it. I'll get the dirt off of it, obviously, but I'll throw this whole thing into my jar of pickles. I'll slice it sideways like this. And in this case, this bulb is small enough that I'll probably throw both of these into a jar of pickles. If it's a little bit bigger than this, I might just throw half. But they're great for that. The larger ones, I'm going to put into a different pile as I grade them. I'm going to have one pile for small ones and one pile for large ones. The large ones I'm going to use for, there it goes, there it is. The larger ones I'm going to use for stock, again, this fall. Again, it's very important to have those larger cloves to give me larger bulbs next year. And I'll have the I call them number ones and number twos. So I'll have the number ones for planting again in the fall, and then I'm also going to give a lot of these larger bulbs away. You know, they're big and they're pretty and I'm proud of them, so you know, they make excellent gifts. And that's one of the reasons why I like growing a lot of garlic, is because I like to give a lot of produce away. And garlic is an excellent thing to give away, because it's not like tomatoes where you give somebody a box of tomatoes and they have to use them like right away. Like some of these old-fashioned heirloom tomatoes, if you don't eat them like that day or the next, then they'll start to rot. So when you give somebody a bunch of tomatoes, it's almost like you're giving them work. Whereas garlic, you know, you can give them a bunch of garlic and it'll last a whole year. And I have people call me up sometimes and be like 6 months later after the fact, and be like, Mark, I just made something last night with your garlic and it was great. And you know, it's just a cool way to I guess keep people thinking about you. Cool gift. Anyway, so that's what I'll do with the large ones. That's what I'll do with the small ones. I'm going to dig up a few more in here. You notice that I'm digging them up. I'm not just pulling them out. If I tried to pull them out, they'd most likely snap. And let's go down here. I know there's some larger looking ones over this direction. Let's see. There's a bigger guy. There's like a double. That's what happens when you plant two bulbs or two cloves together, is you'll get a double like that. They all serve their purpose. Anyway, let me grab my twine. I left my twine over here. There we go. Okay. I got my twine here. I already cut it up into pieces. But this is just regular jute twine. I like to use natural twines as much as I can. They're a little bit more expensive than like nylon twine, but I find it's worth it because I cut little pieces of twine and use them everywhere in my garden, and they wind up all over the place. And if they're natural and they decompose and they're biodegradable, I have nothing to worry about. They can just sort of rot in their place, and you know, the birds can carry them off and make nests with them and things, and it doesn't really faze me. Plus, just the cleanup aspect alone, you know, I don't have blue or white string hanging all over the garden. You know, it's just a little tidier look to it. Anyway, let me get a couple more bulbs here to wrap up, because this bunch isn't quite large enough. You just got to be very careful you don't bruise the garlic. So you kind of want to stay away from it with whatever you're digging it up with. This particular tool that I'm using to dig it up with is called a hori knife. I love this tool. I use it all the time. It comes in a little sheath. It's pretty inexpensive. I think I paid less than $20 for this. It's like a Japanese trowel, and this particular one is stainless steel. It's about 12 inches long. I think it is exactly 12 inches long, but it's got these increments on here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. So I guess it's made for Americans. But excellent tool. Use it for all kinds of things. I slice stuff with it. I can cut twine with it. But it's great to dig up garlic, for sure. Anyway, like I said, I would grade these usually. These aren't quite as graded as I'd like them to be, but for an example's sake, I think this is pretty sufficient. You're going to want a grouping about that large. Anything more than this, it's not going to really dry out quite as well, I think. And it depends on your situation. If you have more of a humid situation, then you're probably going to want to make your bunches a little bit smaller. And if you live in a really dry area, you can probably get away with bunching them up and a few more to a bunch. Now, some people do braid Softneck varieties. Honestly, I don't know how to do that, and if I were to try, it would just take me a little too much time to learn than I'm willing to dedicate to that right now. So what I do is this: very simple. I take my twine and I loop this around a couple times. That gives me a good tight knot, like a self. The knot stays closed. I don't know the names of knots. I just do them. But I wrap this around a few times like that, and then when I pull it, it stays tight. And I pull it real nice and tight, because as this garlic dries out, it will shrink a little bit. And then I'll wrap it over one more time, give it a good tight knot, and then I'll take the two tops. I'll just tie them together like that. And then there you go, there's my little loop. I'll take that and I'll hang that up. I'll hang it somewhere that's dry and cool, and ideally no sunshine on it, definitely no rain on it, but somewhere that's got a lot of airflow. So we have like a 3-sided barn down below. That's going to work perfectly, I think. I'm just going to put a lot of nails along one of the rafters up high, and I'm just going to hang all my excuse me, all my bunches right up on that. And they'll stay up there for about a month or two until they're totally cured. Again, depending on the humidity in your area, you might be able to leave them up longer, or want to leave them up longer, or you could leave them up shorter. But basically what you're going to look for is them to get nice and crispy. Crispy is the word that I would use for it. Like when you know, if you get good garlic from the grocery store and you snap it apart and it's got that great awesome snap to it, that's what you're looking for. But the longer the better. I mean, you could, I mean, honestly, what I'll probably do is I'll probably hang this up in the barn like I was talking about, and like most things around here, I'm probably gonna not worry about it until the first frost starts coming around, and then I'll do this little mad rush of getting everything inside. But it'll be fine like that to leave it up that long. I did want to say that some people do wash their garlic. A lot of people say that you shouldn't wash your garlic. I've heard that. I have before. Like before I tie it up like this, I'll take the whole wheelbarrow full, like I did last year down to the creek. It was actually a really awesome evening. I remember it. I took a bunch of it down to the creek and I just washed garlic for a while because I wanted to give away a bunch of it right away. And it wound up storing just fine. Some people say if you wash garlic, it's not gonna like cure properly, but I mean, I had a regular white Softneck. This is exactly the variety I use, and I still have a batch of that washed garlic in my pantry right now, and it's a year later and it's fine. So you can do that, but if you don't want to do that, the more traditional way is to hang it up, let it cure like this. I don't do anything to it yet, and then in about a month or two, you're going to come back, and that's when you're going to clean it up. You're gonna snip these off once it's once it's nice and cured. You're gonna snip these off. You're gonna snip the roots off, and then you'll take like a nice stiff bristle brush if you have one, and just very lightly go over it, knock off the big clumps of dirt that are on there, and then even if you want to go a little bit farther than that, you can take off a few of the very outside layers. You don't want to peel off too much of the paper because then it's not going to store quite as well, but you can take off a couple of the outside layers that are like the dirtiest, and that's going to clean it up for you really nicely as well. After you hang it and after you cure it, the best way to store garlic, again, is in a nice, cool, dry, well-ventilated place. Like if you have, honestly, that's a pretty hard thing to come by in most people's houses, at least in my house. But anyway, if you have a basement that's really dry, unlike mine, my basement's kind of moist, but if you have a basement that's really nice and dry and stays pretty cool, that would be a great place to store it. Or if you have a garage that's insulated and doesn't freeze, that's probably another great place to keep your garlic. I wouldn't keep it around your potatoes because it does give off a gas that'll cause potatoes to sprout and other fruits and things to spoil. So that's a pretty common misconception to store your onions and your potatoes together. Oftentimes you see people store them together in their kitchen, but I would advise against that. But anyway, this garlic is going to last me for quite a while. I'm glad that I've got a good bit of stock now to work with for this fall. I'm only going to be planting big, nice, fat cloves this fall, so I should have an even better harvest next year. But I only have one variety of garlic so far. So I did want to say that if you have like a garlic that you really like, please leave a comment in the comment section. Just leave a comment about the variety that you like and why and what it tastes like and things like that, because I'd be really curious to sort of seek out new different kinds. And even if you want to take it a step further and send me a couple bulbs of garlic, that would be awesome, because I'll taste them, I'll grow them out, and then, who knows, eventually maybe I might like sell them. So if you want to do that, my address is in the description of this video. It's my business address, it's a P.O. box. And then that applies any kind of seed. If you especially like the cool heirloom stuff, it's been in your family. I mean, tell me a story about it. Like, I would love to see that and hear that and try that. So anyway, that's my garlic. I got my work cut out for me. I got 475 bulbs in here. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. Oh yeah, the spacing. The spacing of these plants, it's about 6 inches between each clove, or between each plant, and then the rows are spaced about 9 to 10 inches apart. So that's what the spacing is on this. Again, this is a white California Softneck garlic, and it's doing really well, and I'm excited to get this up, get this hanging, and go forward and set my sights on planting some more in the fall. So that's my garlic video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.